Games tell amazing stories, but there are also plenty of amazing stories right here in the real world, just waiting for the right platform. Our next speaker uses his skills in augmented reality and virtual reality to amplify the voices of other First Nations people around the continent of Australia. He's bringing those skills to an upcoming survival action game as well. Here to tell us about Virtual Songlines, please welcome Brett Leavy.
Yama, my name's Brett Leavy. I'm a Kumar Māori from Australia, and some people call me the digital Aboriginal down this way. I've been working in game design and communication design for about 2 decades. Uh, I love to help, in the first instance, facilitate the stories of our people and telling their connection to country, in effect, where they're from, what they're about, and what gives us that strong spiritual connection to country, lands, seas, and I suppose you might call it the airways too. Um, I'm really passionate about the possibilities of new technology, and I've been in this space for a while. And the topic of my paper was about cultural heritage and VR, but that's only one part of it. There's more. I think that no matter what you do in VR or AR or PC type screen-based work, it's still about giving context to space. And I think the love of games is so important about that. My website is more than a website. It's more about telling that, taking those themes, those missions, those aims that we have, that so many First Nations people are telling me about, and giving me inspiration to represent into this virtual heritage repository, in a sense. So to give you the context of space, I'm going to transition to my web page, and in there you'll see I've got a rendition of a Google Earth. In effect, it's not Google Earth, it's different than that. It's actually our own version of this that we're showcasing all the different tribes across Australia. And the marker, which is our icon, is the project that we've been delivering over time. At the moment, we're doing 26 locations. And each one of these locations could be explored from a site-specific moment. But particularly, I want to take the time just to show you my mob and where I'm from. These names are all the different tribal groups across Australia, all of them unique identified groups, in a sense, First Nations. My mob here are Kuma, right there. And we work very hard in our country to represent our culture in this way. And this space here, this significant space, was the first piece of land we got back, which is a Kneebine. And this river runs through our country, and as it comes into closer focus, my great grandmother was born around about one of these meanders. I'm not precisely sure which one. I should mark it, actually. I've visited there, but that sort of gives you that context of space that we want to render in this location. So that's the map of these spaces. I'll come right back out, and there's our project-based approach to things. So if you want to visit that, you'll see a lot of stuff there. One of the very first projects we did, which I want to just showcase, which helped us get a footing and get some support and get people involved with what we're about and backing us, getting what I call allies, was a project we did in Sydney, in Eora country. And at the moment, tomorrow, I'm going to be flying down there, back down there to that. And it's called Warani, and it's right there. And if you look at Warani, you take a moment, you'll see all these sites of significance there. And if you pick to our website, you'll see you can click to that, and it will then render all these moments in closer focus about sites of significance at these places. And we've got these that you could visit and find more about. If I take that down from that large point, we've got things where we've done small renders in these places about the stories that go into this. In effect, across our website, we've got something in the vicinity of 47,000 short stories, if that puts anything into context about this work that we've been doing, which we've been on this roller coaster ride for about 2 decades. So Each site here are very, very closely defined by First Nations people, and they've been told to us, and then we've put those in there in the areas there. Around this area was quite a bit of bush medicine, that particular site, bush food, bush medicine, those little icons. Some of them are more relevant to like turtle farming, fishing there, and there's a pretty strong rendition here of a corroboree. That's like a meeting place corroboree space there, corroboree space there. So these sites are if you actually visited Sydney and you went into the Botanical Gardens, you'll actually see that ring in space. So there's actually real world scenarios there that explains this. So that just goes back to that. That gives you the render of our work. And if you come back out, you'll see that we're pretty excited about this, and I think it does some justice to the work we're doing. If I come back and visit one of the other sites I wanted to show, I was looking at another particular presentation. Again, that just shows you that map I just showed you. But all the things that go into the work we do is about telling stories there and what's important to First Nations people. One of the parts to this is our rendering of animals. Now, somebody might say, well, that's an Australian animal and where it fits. But what we did first when we actually rendered animals with the advice of First Nations people is look at those animals that have got a special significance, a totem animal of a sense. So we would then model a kookaburra as the first port of call. That'll be a priority. So when you're thinking about all the animals you could make in this cultural heritage immersive world, where do you start? And I found that when I went to First Nation people, they would say, well, these are our totem animals. This is important. So he who or she who speaks loudest, they're the first cab off the rank. So the kookaburra represents somebody's totem. The crow, one, the crow would be another. The wallaby would be another. The red kangaroo's another. And it goes on. The black snake, or the red belly black snake, actually that one is. So that's not correctly named. And then there's a dingo. So if he comes up, there's the python there. There's quite a few. I think I've got to go through systematically. I'm trying to click on those, and that's a better way. So there you go. So there's sea turtles and whatnot. Everybody thinks they're lovable animals, but for some up far north Queensland, they're a really good feed and great on the barbecue. The white cockatoo, very important to some, and you get an idea of the wealth of stories that go with it. There's that dingo I was trying to talk about before, running around. He causes a bit of trouble on Gari at the moment, which is Fraser Island, which is just about 150 kilometers or probably 100 miles from where I'm living at the moment, going north. That's a bit of an animal. There's a magpie for us. So there's a wealth of animals there. Now, if anybody can see this screen and wanted to, this is some of the work that we've been working on. And these are like 360-degree renders. So there's a QR code that anybody could click on and look at that. And that would bring up a story about a river scene. I think this might be a Sydney one, Sydney Harbour. It's a scene that was done by, we actually took a very, very famous painting painted around about 1792, 1793 in Sydney by a convict artist called Joseph Lycett. And he painted this picture of convicts fishing by candlelight, or candlelight he called it. Well, we called them torches. And the torches tend to attract fish to the surface to see the light, and then the First Nations people would spear them. So we just did this whole big render of that scene. Now, when I talked about those multiple scenes that we've made, that's just one example of one. And in that exploration of that scene, there's a lot that could be garnered from just that one experience. This is what I call serious gamification. We want to make this quite special in this regard. So there's some scenes there. You can look across the page there. There's quite a few of them, and you can render that. And then to help us get by, I put this photograph in there, or this image in there, because I wanted to talk about the fact that we need support to do what we do, and the way we do that is by commission. And this is in one of the stations in Sydney, and right below this station used to be where, or not underneath it, but very close to it, beside it, was where Tank Stream used to run down. It was a freshwater source that the first settlers decided to use as their freshwater source as soon as they landed in 1788. And it was also a freshwater source that First Nations people used to use as well. So it was a contested terrain back then in the history of the first settlement of Australia. And so you had that juxtaposition between the First Nations people and the settlers trying to find a way to get by. And this freshwater stream became Tank Stream because people used to dig big holes so the water would pool in fresh waterways. Now, we're not rendering that at the first instance. We're going back to the pristine state of that creek, of that stream running down, that freshwater stream that comes back down from Hyde Park in Sydney down, and then we showed it on this big screen that people would see there, and it ran for about, the experience on that screen was about 26 minutes, but it was a three-dimensional world. You could explore it, and it was called Warani, and that's the sort of work we like to do in that regard. I think there's some other there. There's that's just another show of a thing we did up at a project we did up at Sunshine Coast, where we told 7 stories of First Nations people talking about their spiritual connection to country. That lady there is called Bridget Chili Davis. She's pretty famous, very loud lady, very loud and boisterous up there in the Sunshine Coast, fighting for her great grandmother's ancestral lands, and we did a story with her and put her stories in there, and yeah, she's just showcasing that at one of our big national cultural heritage events up there. So again, why I think showing her is important for our work is we do work that's co-design and co-collaboration. We want to collaborate and co-design. Bridget's in a sense, the executive advisor, executive director, if you want to call it that. And in a sense, we're just instruments for her storytelling. I love this work, but I can't do it if I'm not empowered by people like her to tell this story. I think she's just brilliant. And when you talk about a lady like her in that region, I literally have 100 strong Aboriginal female women with strength and connection to the country that we want to represent in the work we do. It's so vital. Yeah. There's some difficulties going on in Australia, if you've ever heard. And when I talk about strong women like Bridget, I want to just reflect on the difficulties of what I call a contested terrain in our country, which I don't think many people would not resonate with in their own neck of the woods. We're talking at the moment with a group called Julawalu, and I don't know if you know much about the history of that place, but a mining company called Rio Tinto blew up their sacred sites. The big bosses lost their jobs, but 60,000 years of connection to country was destroyed by a mining company looking to extract resources for their development. And I don't think this is news to many people. I think we're fighting it all over the place of that continuity of connection that breaks the spirit to land that we just don't want to see. And hence me saying this is really why we're motivated to do what we do. If I come back to our work, and I'll come back into this. In effect, this particular work is basically, before I show you this, I'll come back to another page, which is this page here. So to achieve this work, to do the designs on the screens, to get there, we're using a game engine. We used to use Unity 3D and loved it, and was in it for working in that space for I just don't know how long, since inception of Unity. Originally, I was in the Talk game engine and then moved into this. I've been involved in this space since 89, I think, was when I first started trying to do games, and then worked really, really hard around the traps to get internet into Australia. which was important, internet, and then satellite communications. And my history was I worked a long way trying to lobby the advent of TV for our nation, which is now called NITV. So I was at that beginning. But because I like a bit technology, I'm thinking TV is great in a passive sense. How do we put people inside those moments? How do we build, in effect, I'm sort of suggesting, how do we build a virtual heritage time machine? That is, I think, is a really good way of, doing the elders' connection to country, talking about our ancestors and walking in the footsteps of those people who've told those stories in the past. So that's that part of it. But this is our work. We're using, I talking about working here with the cesium product. I did meet somebody when I was at the recent South by Southwest conference earlier this year in March over at Austin, Texas, and he came up and talked about this. And we're still grappling with this and seeing how it works. But in effect, that gives us a globe, as you know, if you actually know this program, it works quite well. And we're just looking at how we can integrate this into our opening scene. So I showed you the web presence. How do we bring that web presence with that wonderful globe we've got there into a game sense to allow people to walk on country? So that's that part of it. Now, coming back, I just want to sort of say that I've got this content folder here showing all the levels we're working on. And at the moment, these are all the different projects where we want people to walk on country from a gamification perspective. A multi-user cultural heritage survival game. And in that survival game, we're talking about quests and taking all those moments of significance and showing, I think we're working on 28 days in the life of a First Nations people prior to first settlement. And in effect, we wanted to then deliver that on at 100 locations where capital cities and regional towns existed in Australia. And then doing that with a co-design arrangement with First Nations people, so they lead the charge on telling the stories about their landscapes, their country, and their experiences. And so here we are with some of those. And as we speak, my team, and there's great people like Tenzin, who's doing the landscape and the topographical landscape design into the world. I've got people like David who's doing a lot of the 3D objects. I've got someone like Mike who's in Singapore who's helping us with getting our metahumans looking really, really real and authentic based on historical photographs and references. I've got someone like a guy called Sean Campbell, who's doing a lot of work getting all the nitty gritties there. So we don't have any, if you look at the output log, and if this will resonate with some, we don't want any red flags in our work. No red flags. There's a couple of yellow ones there, but we don't want any red ones. Um, 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 and we want it to run smoothly and then also get the greatest frame rate we can so that we suspend disbelief for people in an authentic way when we're telling the stories that First Nations people have entrusted us and given us the faith and knowledge to be able to do. And don't forget, that's got to be, you got to go back again and again and keep proving that you're doing the right thing on a constant basis. And when you've got 100 projects with anywhere up to 3 to 6 people you've got to talk to, it becomes a bit of a task, which I'm up for. It's a challenge. So that tells you those projects. And then from there, if I come back that step to my world, that way I can show you that now this naming is not right. These are just placeholders. So this is still a work in progress, this particular iteration. But if I was to go back, we've done multiple project iterations in the past. So we're just sort of combining it together into a better mousetrap in a sense. We iterate. Let's just look at it like this. We're not Windows, what is it, Windows 11 now? We're probably Virtual Songlines version 6, I'd say. But this is our work. So I'm going to try to enter Thursday Island. It's going to take a little bit of time to load, but it should work pretty well given that we've got a lower resolution. I'd like to see what it looks like at high D, but we generally want to see this as high resolution as we can. We're getting about, on a PC, that's pretty good, about 60 frames a second. And I think it's good to talk about the technology because, frame rates for us is to making sure that when we show it to an old elder, one of our elder custodians, statesmen or statespeople, we want to make sure that they're happy, that the work resonates with them, that we've done the right thing, and if there's anything faulty with it, then they'll pick it up. So our first, I suppose, authorities to validate and verify what we're doing are those people. In effect, this is the world as it goes, and in effect, yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think at high definition. Our animals are running around. I've got a deer out there running around in the water, and we're looking at a few little bits and pieces there with the people. And if I'm not careful, that python will attack me. He's got his mouth open and he's going to go, so I better get away. In effect, when you look at our work, you can choose any weapon and everything's animated. Now, there's an important part of this. Now, it's all in English, and that's important. But what we're doing here is we're adding a localization system into this. And that localization system, sorry, I'm moving a bit fast there. That localization system in this work means that we can take the local English language, and then through our database arrangements in local areas, we can then translate all of this work into the local Aboriginal language. And in a sense, there's 300 dialects or more in Australia, and we want to do this as a language reclamation project as well. I think she should be walking around, not running, but we'll have to adjust her and see what she does. Anyway, and there we go. And then there's some normal aspect to this where we're looking at dilly bags and other bits and ability for us to put weapons on. I don't know if he can carry a shield. I don't think I've allowed him. I think when you got a spear, you can only carry one spear, and that can be used and thrown and used in a way. Now, our weapons and our artifacts as a separate thing, as a unique thing, is that we take photographs of museum pieces, those things that are held in archives, and then model those in 3D and then put them back into the context of the country that they belong. So these spears, but for the exercise, this is not accurate for this area, but these spears that you're going to see here, we've got so many made, it's not funny. But they will be then used accordingly with that local area that they belong to. And that is very important that we do that authentically and real, because our own people will know that that's not right. If you look closely there, I think if you can see his spears going through his hand, we'll have to fix that. So that's about troubleshooting. Another thing that's important too is that I'm trying to look, and this is one of our grappling things. We're just still going backwards and forwards on this, so it's a work in progress. But we want to, what I'm showing you now is that we want to then deliver this as an alpha this Friday. So today is the recording of this is on the 23rd, which is a Wednesday. In 2 days' time, we're going to go out with an alpha, and then we're going to spend a bit of time refining that alpha to become a beta, probably in the beginning of December. And those things like where he's holding the spear in his hand, we're going to fix. Okay. Also, how he might carry it when he's walking. You don't carry a spear like that when you're walking, because you'll find that the spear will jab into the ground. If anybody's ever been a javelin thrower, you tend to carry the spear up and vertical in the sense, not horizontal. A vertical spear is the safest way to walk in real life, and that way we want to replicate that in the work that we do. So there you have it. So that's important. So all these things are the idiosyncrasies of getting an authentic cultural heritage survival game happening. Might not seem like much, but I don't think it's too hard to carry a spear the proper way in a virtual world. So I've got a little bit of time left, and I just wanted to show you that aspect of the work. And in a sense, we've got, I think, very good to a great good result that we think that we can take to the market and share. Every time we do this work, when we actually do go live and provide it as a sale item, we're thinking about a publisher who might be interested in this sort of stuff. We're looking at this is crossing like genre boundaries. It's simply not a survival game, but it's more authentic as much as we can. The important other part of it is that it involves the importance of respecting culture. So we've got to get it right. But then if we do find that people find this exciting and fun, and we give it a real good gameplay aspect to it, then we know that that will be probably saleable. And in a sense, we're talking about people paying for access to cultural heritage, and we want to do that in the most respectful way we can. So when we do this work with each group, we want to have a return of some of the of revenue back to them for their knowledge, because this stuff can't be done truly without their help. And I've got so many backers that I want to give back as much as we can. This is not about this is not a business as such. This is more about telling stories, and we just love telling it. And we've got something that is special, and we were on a great journey. So I know that we've got a runway of support for at least 2 years, which means that we're supported to do this work for at least 2 years. But in that 2 years, we want to deliver for the different groups. Deliver for Sydney, all the capital cities: Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, and Canberra, and Darwin as well. We want to deliver for the regional towns that are so important to this process, and we want to deliver the history of their establishment, and then tell those stories that resonate with First Nations people on a case by case basis. And as much as we can, if you come back to my screen here, looking at things like virtual tourism, looking at things like AR and VR design, looking at things that embedding Indigenous perspectives into public spaces so that people don't forget the connection of country to First Nations people, the authentic cultural animation aspects of telling stories, and then looking at the possibilities of how virtual tourism can be used to showcase these stories in public spaces. This is the International Convention Centre. So that's my yarn. That's my story. If anybody's interested, my website details are there to be seen. Please really reach out. Any ways that we can become better versions of ourselves within my team and myself is more than welcome. We're still on a journey of discovery, exploration, growth, and we just want to be better and better for our communities who we're telling stories for, and facilitating that knowledge of connection to country. So in a sense, Virtual Songlines, and to finish off with, is, I think, a new technology for an ancient culture, and we want to keep rocking and rolling. And thanks for the opportunity to show this story and to share this story, and to maybe grab some more allies overseas. There you go. Thanks.
That idea of a cultural heritage time machine, it's a powerful one. When we craft these digital worlds, we provide context that players feel and explore, and it's context that they carry out into the real world. It seems that there have been a number of ways that Brett's work has helped shape people's understandings of Indigenous experiences in Australia, and I hope that Virtual Songlines helps in that process as well. Thanks so much for the talk, Brett.